come join me as I set out for my first reenactment of the year. Firstly, to prepare, I spend at least a week getting my girl ready, which includes various training and emotional preparation, like trailer loading, and moving sideways under saddle. Then, come the day, I prepare my gear and dress in my kit. For these first events, I'm reenacting as a member of the mounted militia, albeit as a woman in disguise. So this kit includes a shirt, a waistcoat, breeches, stockings, and long boots. And of course, my saber and tricorn. Now, in case you're wondering, no, I do not usually have my nails done for these events. However, should this be the case, I usually wear gloves anyway, so huzzah, problem solved. This year, I am trying something new, as I have just been gifted a GoPro and converted a helmet strap to a tricorn strap to carefully place my camera. Then on the day of the event, I head in super early to the stables, hook up my own truck and trailer, load my girl, and hit the road, sometimes eating breakfast on the way. Finally, after a safe drive, I arrive at my destination. This site, for instance, is Patrick Henry's homestead, Scotchtown, a favored stomping ground of ours. Firstly, this event was Patrick Henry's Ride for Liberty. The history behind this: he delivered that famous speech, "Give me liberty or give me death," at the Virginia Convention that year. This was in March 1775, making this the 250th anniversary. In fact, everyone is ramping up now, historical reenactors, historic sites in this country, because starting really the last 2 years with Boston Tea Party, everything that's happened since is going to be the 250th anniversary. So stay tuned. There's going to be many more events this year and the next few years, all throughout what would have been the end of our American Revolution. And so this was the 250th anniversary of Patrick Henry's speech. We reenacted this at his home in Scotchtown.
I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death.
Huzzah!
This was an intimate event that highlighted this milestone in colonial thinking of the time. It was 2 months later that Patrick Henry then gathered some militia and was going to march on to Williamsburg. This was the second part of this year's reenactment. Patrick Henry had marched with 150 volunteer militia to New Kent. This was all in the state of Virginia, and all exactly 250 years ago. They were headed for Williamsburg, what was the capital of the time, because something highly disturbing had just happened to the citizens there, and they wanted answers. April 27th, 1775, without any vote or say-so from the public, and under the cover of night, the governor, Lord Dunmore, had ordered sailors of the Royal Navy to sneak in and steal the public supply of gunpowder, thus removing the citizens' ability to bear arms. The town of Williamsburg awoke to find this was the case. And if that's not going to upset colonial Americans or Americans in general, I don't know what would. Many of them were irked just at the fact how he did it in secret, as opposed to asking the public what they wanted, what they expected, etc., basically robbing the public of their voice. And certainly that's how they felt about it at the time. And keep in mind, ships of British soldiers had already been dropping off hundreds of armed regulars up and down the coast at major cities and ports. So well-armed soldiers were on the march all throughout what should be just a home state for these Americans. And I think Virginia knew they were next. So the prospect of facing armed British soldiers without any means of defending themselves terrified them, as it had their northern brethren. But Virginians were still gentlemen, and Patrick Henry, while he had 150 volunteers, dispatched 16 militia to politely demand repayment for the stolen gunpowder. They were going to ask the British Receiver General in the area. This was a government official in the area who managed the treasury. If they received some repayment back, then that was something, at least as far as Patrick Henry was concerned. He believed in trying to do something to appease and give back the people what they needed. Make no mistake, the Americans were trying almost everything they could, mostly to try and avoid conflict.
What terms shall we find which have not already been exhausted? Let us not, I beseech you, sir, deceive ourselves further. We have done everything which could be done to avert the storm that is now coming on. We have petitioned, we have remonstrated, we have supplicated, we have prostrated ourselves before the throne and implored its interposition to arrest the tyrannical hands of the ministry and the parliament.
That Dunmore had taken the gunpowder, and in such a sneaky manner, truly shocked Virginians. And of course convinced them even more so that Britain and her agents were becoming tyrannical and were no longer having the public interest at mind. Americans were beginning to feel shackled. In the minds of many Virginians and Continentals at large, it was even raising the question of having to obey an absolute monarch at all. It especially became more and more difficult to be beholden to a king who was so far away, and that for the past several years had not been treating the citizens accordingly. So these were the stepping stones toward independence, and we are thus going through the 250th anniversary of it. So come join me as I go through various reenactments, and this one starting with Patrick Henry. So we just arrived. I'm gonna start getting settled in. This place is gorgeous. The weather is nice. I think we're in for a good day. The site of this reenactment was at New Kent, Virginia. Exactly the same location Patrick Henry stopped on his way to Williamsburg. So, before the event was open for the public, We saddled up and joined the main camp, getting ready for the day's event. We did this event near New Kent Courthouse, where Patrick Henry and his men stopped and convened en route to Williamsburg. We had the honor of recreating this in the 18th century ordinary there. An ordinary was a type of establishment in the 18th century that was a small inn or tavern that offered rooms and meals. So, our site was this very building, which has a tavern down below. I should say this site is also a B&B now, so a link to this site is in the description if you're interested. Stationed at the ordinary, Patrick Henry sent a detachment of 16 militia to politely demand recompense payment for the gunpowder from the British Receiver General.
And only security brings free government. In other words, I was calling for the formation of independent companies such as this one.
So, my regiment of mounted militia are recreating that period where Henry and his forces are waiting for news from the detachment before deciding to go forward, or not to go forward, into Williamsburg after compensation is arranged for payment to the Virginia Committee. This puts the power back into the people's hands, as Henry had hoped.
For the last 10 years, to justify these hopes of peace.
So while we're waiting for word back to see if we are going to get payment back, all the militia, including us, practice our drills, along with recruiting some public along the way. Good girl. Good looking. Beautiful. Good girl. Ooh, you're too.
Just recently that Mr. Carter Braxton, the son-in-law of Richard Corbin, King's Receiver General in Virginia, asked if I might consider that if Dunmore paid for the powder which was stolen, would we then discontinue our march? I told him that I would give it consideration, but I was going to have certain proof that that money would be there. That's where we stand currently. Still waiting. It is still possible that we might continue on to Williamsburg. It is possible there may be bloodshed by the end of this day.
We're ready, sir. We're ready.
I know that. Nonetheless, I believe it would be proper, Lieutenant Wickham, for you to continue with your military exercises. That's where we are at present.
In the end, a horse rider approached, galloping on in May 4th, 1775. Word would come from this mounted messenger, who was from the 16 dispatchers Henry had sent out, with the following notice that Dunmore would in fact agree to pay the summary for the powder, though not return it. This compromise was sufficient for Henry, who accepted the payment on behalf of the Virginia Convention of £330 for the powder. He was satisfied with this move and dismissed the militia back to their homes. This safe attempt to de-escalate the situation worked, for now, and it also blocked Dunmore from various threats he had been making against the citizens, which included burning Williamsburg to the ground.